There's
I'm gonna.
80,000 videos up there.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
So today we got Randy Huntington, the legendary track and field coach, and I know you've previously coached Mike Powell. He's a record
Yeah.
holder for a long jump,
Mm-hmm.
895, and you also help coach. You also coach Willie Banks, like legendary triple jumpers. That's
Mm-hmm.
amazing. And after that, you also go to like South Korea. You go to like China to coach Su Bingtian, Wang Zhennan. That's like amazing. So like basically all like the track coaches, jump coaches I talk with, they admire your work, man.
Yeah, it's not easy what we've accomplished because it's not just Mike and Willie, although they were obviously incredible. Um, but then there's Sheila Hudson, who was US record holder at one point, US record holder in the triple jump, and there's Joe Green, and there's Kenta Bell, and there's Shakima Walker, and uh, high jumpers. There's 800-meter runners, Kathy Rounds, which what led me to coaching Wang Chenyu through Tokyo. Um, and to see that young lady almost improve 4 seconds was quite an accomplishment for her. And I'm back helping her now. It's still going to be a long journey. Uh, it was a very difficult time for her emotionally. Um, so she's coming back from that, and now we're having the opportunity for her to start to show what she's capable of. But it's gonna take time. I don't know if we're gonna be ready by Paris, but gosh, I hope so. You know,
Yeah. You
she's very
said
talented.
you set a really high bar for the track coaches. I mean, you're at the goat mountain there.
Well, first of all, in China, and the same it was true in South Korea, because in there the coaches only coach one event, but in the U.S. we coach many events. I've coached all the sprints and all the hurdles and most of the throws and all the field events, um, horizontal and vertical jumps, and relatively well too. With um, Olympic qualifiers, Olympians in almost everything, with the exception of the 200 and the 400, because I didn't coach it very much. Um, but the 100-meter hurdles, 400 hurdles, uh, there's just we just do a lot, and with Lauren being there now in Shanghai, I mean, he's coaching the jumps and some of the sprints, of course, and he knows how to coach it all. It's I'm going to be sipping here while we're doing this. Um, so the Chinese didn't think I could coach other events, and that includes coaching the relay to the national record, in 2019. So, and that actually is one of my, I mean, with Jinan winning the World Juniors and coming back and winning Worlds, that was great to see him do. And with Chen Yu coming and improving, um, well, improving her 1500 by almost 20 seconds, her 800 by 4 seconds, and her 400 by almost 3 seconds. Um, it gives us not quite that much, but almost. But those are great things. And of course, then what Sue did in Tokyo is running 983 and fastest 60 and all of that. It all works. But again, nobody there thought I could coach these other events. As a matter of fact, they wouldn't let me. For the first 3 years, 4 years I was there, I arrived in 2013. So not until for 5 years, I didn't coach another event. I had to coach the long jump. And I'd go over and help the sprinters, and I'd go over and look with the high jumpers a little bit and work with them. And then I took over some of the triple jumpers. Don Bin did really well. His coach listened, his coach learned. They adapted a lot of what we wanted to do. Don ended up being world indoor champion in 2016 and bronze medalist. And kudos to his coach, who did a great job with him. But we laid the groundwork with him in 2014, leading up to Incheon. Um, But and then the sprints, nobody thought I could coach the sprints. And of course, nobody thought I could coach the relay. You've never coached the relay before. Well, yeah, I have coached the relay, just haven't coached national teams. But, you know, that doesn't mean I can't coach the relay because the relay is the relay. You got to know how to do it, whether you do or don't. It doesn't matter whether you're working with high school kids or university or national team. It's still the same game. It's still the same process, and you have to look at the same parameters and try to change them. So, um, and then 800 meters, nobody thought I could coach 800. Of course, they didn't look at my resume, or if they would have known that I coached a two-time 800-meter champion, a women's champion in the U.S. If they had looked, they would have known I knew quite a bit about the 800. Um, so, and the 400 and 1500 were just byproducts. We were just training for the 8, and you run the 4 and the 15 as part of that thing. And that's I was just answering a note here. They're asking, well, why are we running 200 indoors? Because it's speed work. It's high intensity speed work. It's what you do. You know, would I rather she runs a 500 or a 600? Yeah, but nobody's offering them. So, we're not in the US to go run those types of distances.
Cool. So, um, I have to say I'm really honored to like get to talk to you again. So, uh, I wanted to like ask the first question since like sprinting is a like really big focus on speed and power. So how do you monitor like neuromuscular fatigue for like the sprinters and jumpers?
Well, I use the Mega Wave most of the time. We did for a number of years, and then the men got lazy. Chun Yu still uses it. She still gets a report every morning. As a matter of fact, I didn't get her report yet this morning, but I'll get it right now while we're sitting here. And that way I can tell what she's ready to do because she's been a little fatigued after the last few sessions. And going backwards, I don't know if but I coached Tony Nye there in Taiwan, who at one point was your long jump and triple jump record holder. Na
Oh,
Nai Hui Feng, is that right? Yeah.
I need to
And
check that. I don't.
yeah, now he's a professor, and okay, she's good. See, so I have pull this up. So I monitor, you can see it if I can get it close enough. I got to get it where I am. There we go. I monitor her um her omega wave every day, and you can see that's what it looks like. So she was down here earlier on. This over here is today over here. Um and so I get an idea. I'm not there, so I'm coaching her remotely right at this time. I'll be going over in a little while to China to work with her one on one. But um, with it, that's one way. Another way, of course, is you can use jumps, use the Kaiser leg press or Kaiser squat. And work on looking at your power output every day. That works too. Some people just use straight up jumps and a force platform or some sort of jumping platform. There's different ways. Typically, though, for a lot of us, we just look. We can watch when somebody walks on the track, whether they're dragging or not, and whether we might need to, maybe we need to change the session today, I mean, because you write sessions, but the sessions are biological in nature. You're never sure. You can control the stress on the track, but it's the rest of the stress in life that you can't control that can change what's happening between sessions. Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. And I like you use Omega Wave because like I feel like even if you use like force platform like force plate or like other even on force plate checking like peak power, that's not really like you can like literally see that immediately. And you
Well,
also
when you're looking at neuromuscular fatigue, you have to look at average. Don't look at peak. Um, but when you're looking at change in performance, you look at peak. So, um, and because the peak can really change a lot, but the average is best if you use that for your neuromuscular for your fatigue situation. So
Okay, can we dive a little bit deeper into this? Because like,
we can
uh,
try. Yeah.
because uh, recently I talked to like Coach Boo. Shout out to Coach Boo. He said like neuromuscular. There is three stages of neuromuscular fatigue. The first stage is like the first stages of fatigue is like the finite movement, skill, coordination, kind of like get loose. You can't detect that on a force plate. The second stage is like timing, so reactive strength index, time to peak power, these kind of metrics kind of drop. And then the third phase is like peak power. So he mentioned peak power, like, and I know you also mentioned like just watch how they perform, how they sprint.
Mhm.
That's like pretty cool. But like, why do you mention like mean instead of like peak?
Well, just because when you look at the mean, and I don't use mean very often because I don't use that method, but the mean is going to show you the peak can have too much variability. Too many things can affect the peak. So when you're looking at neuromuscular fatigue, you want to look at the averages so you can start to see change in overall. Peak can really change quite a bit. You can still have a high peak and be totally fatigued. It can happen, you know. Balance is a one really good thing. Yeah, just using a single foot stance, you'd be surprised. The fine motor skills and balance change with fatigue. So yeah, Boo's spot on. So you can manage a test for each one of those. Um, and it also depends on what you're using for peak force because a lot of us don't have force platforms. So we're using GymAware or we use Kaiser, which you can use Kaiser peak force to do that because it's accurate enough. Um, but the others are still not as accurate. So you're using the average to try to maintain accuracy. I know that sounds crazy, but that's why you're doing it.
I got you. I got you. So, um, and you mentioned that you can literally like we can just see how they perform on the track, and that's going to determine if we're going to change the training session or not. I feel like nowadays most of the
You
co
see it in warm up. You'll see it right away in warm up. You see them when they're walking on the track. Their butts are dragging. Something's wrong. They're not. You can just tell. Like, okay, come over here. Then you have a little chat with them and say, okay, change the session. That's what you do. You know. Now you have to get good enough at it to know when people are faking it. You know, and a lot of people do. But you just have to. If they want to do that, they'll phase their way out of the sport pretty fast.
that is true. That is true. So, um, like I feel like nowadays coaches rely on technology more. I mean, that's not a bad thing. I love
No,
technology and
so do
like,
I.
but like, I do appreciate that, like watching how they warm up, watching maybe the drills they do, and feel like, oh, maybe they're fatigued, maybe something's going on.
Well, it like even when you're doing a fatigue test, your question is why. It doesn't give you an answer. It just asks the question why. Why are they fatigued? Are they fatigued because of your training? Are they fatigued because they ate poorly? They had a fight with their boyfriend or girlfriend or husband or wife or significant other? Did they not sleep well? Did they go do a different session away from you and you didn't know about it? I mean, it's a whole slew of things that can lead you, but that makes you ask why, which is what it should do. It should be
Yeah.
saying, "Oh, yeah, hey, why are you tired?" You know, and if you haven't adapted well because of the session, then you manipulate the session. Um, because your whole goal is to reduce and is to keep the potential for injury low as you can, given the sport we're in, which is pretty hard to do because we, quite frankly, push the envelope pretty hard. You know,
Cool. So, I know in previous like discussion, I know like you use 10-day cycle. So can you like kind of explain like what is 10-day cycle?
Well, I use a 10-day cycle because I can't fit enough rest in a 7-day cycle in order to allow for adaptation. So I open up the density because you have intensity and you have volume, intensity, and density. And the density of training is something that, you everybody talked a lot about density back in the days when people were doing drugs, which fortune for the most part was during while I was coaching, but I wasn't around it. So I was really fortunate. But when you look at the literature back then, the density of training was just crazy. And the only way they could ever do that is with some sort of drug-based training to help enhance recovery. So what we do is we look at what can we do to enhance recovery? What can we do to get that parasympathetic sympathetic balance back for the next session? And if that takes more rest or takes a different kind of rest, takes nutritional intervention, um, maybe they need some magnesium, maybe they need zinc, maybe they need something that will help them help their body and enhance that recovery in the natural way. Um, so and for me, recovery is everything, and it's a frustrating thing for me, and was in Korea and in China, because recovery was very poor, and the sports medicine was really difficult. And I say that everywhere, it doesn't matter. Sports medicine component is something that's growing and getting better and better and better each year, in Asia, and it needs to. Japan's pretty far ahead. They've been doing it for so many years, but the others, not really. You know, the uh, the sports medicine. I'm talking about sports medicine, not general medicine, or not TCM. Some of those are fine, but when it comes to sports medicine and evaluation, yeah. But as I've said, in the last 6 years, the younger generation has picked up on these newer things, and now they're starting to evaluate appropriately. And I think you're going to see some changes uh, over the years in the ability of the athletes to recover, and that's going to give greater performance ratios. So the 10-day cycle is put in so I can get enough rest. That's the only reason for it. It's you see 9, 10, 11, and 14-day cycles are kind of the norm. I do go to a 7-day cycle as I approach competition, um, just because it's easier. Um, the whole schedule is based on a week then, and but our density of training is very low then, so it doesn't matter because the density's gone, and I can do 7-day cycles without a problem. I don't think you can recover well enough in 7-day cycles. I just don't think you can. I don't see how you do it. I mean, you, you saw Chen Yu there, and she's working on, you know, that's a 10-day cycle. Let me come back a little bit, and you can kind of see, put her up here, there. You can kind of see what this looks like. She's really down, and then she just slowly goes up and down and up and down and up and down. And that's all based on pretty much how hard she worked that day and how well she rested. Or did she go to the pool? Did she get massage? Did she get in the hyperbaric chamber? What was she doing to enhance all of that? Yeah.
So I know you utilize a lot of pool work in China. So can you kind of like talk a little like what exactly did you do on the pool?
Well, I used a lot of pool work since the 70s. So I started using it in 1978. Um, the real key to the pool work is that you're vertically immersed, not horizontal. So you're not swimming, you're vertical immersion. You can either be on the bottom or off the bottom. We do most of our stuff off the bottom, not on the bottom. In rehab and some other things, we'll do stuff on the bottom. But in general, I'm trying to get all their joints away from gravity. I'm trying to undo the effects of gravity from that previous training session, the one. just before it. And when you're vertically immersed like this, you got two low pressure systems. You've got venous return to the heart, and you got superficial lymphatic. So superficial lymphatic basically pumps all the waste products out of the body. And so when you're vertically immersed, you've got a higher pressure differential here than you do here. And so the pressure differential pumps this way. And it makes it, without you even moving, it's pumping this way. Then when you start moving and you get the actual pumps in the body, it even moves it more, and you pump out the waste products, and they, come out through this lymph duct right here into the bloodstream, into the kidneys, filtered out, and is gone. Um, and that's superficial lymphatic. Now, then the venous return to the heart has another side, which is why I use it a lot with middle distance and distance. And that is that you get all this blood rushing back to the right side of the heart. Well, what's the heart got to do to get rid of it? It's got to increase stroke volume. What do you do to increase stroke volume? You run mile after mile after mile, or ride mile, or ski, or whatever it may be, mile after mile after mile. But you can accomplish the same thing by getting in the water horizontally and letting that stroke volume get pushed through, and your heart then adapting to that. So I'm never afraid of the pool in terms of stressing the body, or de-stressing the body, one or the other, you know. And what we do in there, basic drills, mobility, hip mobility, some little running drills. What we're looking at is moving each joint in its maximum range of motion in all directions. That's really what it's about. And um, and then we might finish up with some light sprints to push the waste products out even more. And that's all. It's real simple. It takes about 15, 20 minutes. It's not long.
So how like in a 10-day cycle, like would you put in like after maybe put one or two into the 10-day cycle
Every day,
every day after
every
practice?
day, after every session, after every last session of the day, you're in the pool.
That's gonna be a
Yeah.
long day.
Well, not really. It's only 15 minutes more. I mean, it's not that much. If we had a sauna, we'd do sauna pool combination,
Ooh,
and that would be even better. If we had sauna cold plunge pool, we'd do that. So we yeah, water every day if possible. Let's put it, sometimes it's not, but for the most part, it's a daily thing. It's part of your daily restoration mechanism.
nice. So, uh, would you say that like using uh the pool to help recovery or sauna is probably one of the key reason that you have like so many success on track and field?
Well, it's one of the key reasons we stay relatively healthy. I mean, we're not always healthy. Stuff happens. I mean, Sue's 30, 31, 32 years old. Stuff starts to happen to those bodies. I mean, it's pretty hard to control. Um, Chen Yu now is 27, I think. She's 27 this year. Um, Jainan is same age or older, 28. I think they're both 96, 94. One of those two. Um, and so yeah, your focus heads more in the direction of recovery than it would normally maybe do with kids. Yeah. And with junior high and high school, like boys, there's just so much testosterone running through them as they're developing that they recover pretty easily. I mean, compared to later on.
Cool. So, uh, can you like share a little bit about like the layout of the 10-day cycle?
Well, it depends on the event, time of year. Um, let's see here. Right now, I'll just bring up Sue's, or Sue's or Chen Yu's, doesn't really matter, either one. So so Chen Yu's currently, and I'm doing her stuff this year a little differently than I've done in the past. Um, and that is that um, I'm basing it a little bit on what is expected of the 400, 800, and 1500 in Tokyo. So, and in that week. So her first day, let me go back here. Whoops, on the wrong one. There we go. So her first day is basically in a little activation in the morning, small run in the zone 2. Then she comes back and does dynamic mobility and then a longer, harder run, not much longer, 25 minutes, zone 3. And then the next day, she's going to do drills and speed. So she's going to drill it and do some speed. And then the following day, she's going to come in and run her 600, 300, 150, which is an 800, not 800 speed, but an 800 lactate workout, if you wish. And then the following day, she'll do weight training in the morning and a nice easy run. And then the next day, she's out and she's got 3 by 1,000 with usually 4 minutes rest, but this time of year I'm at 6 to 8 minutes rest. And then the next morning she's got a pretty hard run, a zone 4 run, and some mobility and some dynamic stretching. And she's back to technical day again. And then a little zone 2 run in the evening. And then the next day she gets up, she's got a zone 2 run, wake up, activation. And then she's got 12 by 250 run in under 40, under 39 now actually. So that's with we use a Human and MMO2. So I'm not looking at time for recovery. I'm looking, excuse me, how fast her cells return to oxygen homeostasis. And in that case, she started out at 16,200. It used to take her about 115 to 130. But we add that 50 meters, and these first ones, this is her second week doing it, second cycle doing it. She'd be at 215 to 245. And I think once we get to 2 minutes, then boom, then we move it up to 300. And then we go again, and she comes down to 2 minutes. Then we move up to 350, go again. Then we get to 400. Eventually, she's doing 8 by 400 with 2 minutes rest.
That,
And at race pace, or close to it. So 64 or so for a female 1,500-meter runner.
how about like how like if 100 like let's say if it's 100 meter, how would be like if the structure would be different?
Not a lot different. Let me just bring up Sue's. It's not significantly different because we're still in general prep. So, you know, it's downloading some changes here. So give me a minute.
Okay.
There we go. Okay, so right now, and he's got activation on Monday mornings, and then he comes back, and we've got some acceleration and block starts on Monday afternoon, weight training in the morning, rest in the afternoon, the rest in the morning, and we come back and we've got ASSE. We're using Exogen and spikes for this one. Um, and actually, we're doing aerobic capacity right now. Well, that'll be an ASSE, GSSE session later on. And the aerobic capacity for him would be like 2 by 5 by 90 meters, not done exceptionally fast. We'll use a 120 heart rate, 140 heart rate in between. And then we've got, let's see, we go into warm up and mini hurdles and just some sprinting, just some good old fashioned get it on. Um, and the next day we're back to block starts. And then we're back to um, Yeah, and we're at black starts, and then we're at speed endurance, where we'll do a 150, 2x120, 2x90, and call it a day. Yeah.
Nice. Nice. So, uh, in previous like podcasts or like podcasts you did with Joel Smith, you mentioned you're a big drill guy. So what are the drills you use like in China or like uh the with other track and field athletes?
Well, they're the same drills I've used for almost 40 years. They're drills. Um, what's the purpose of drilling? Um, so drilling, you look at when you look at drilling, the movement from the ground back to the ground is stride frequency or air time. The movement once you're on the ground is what gives you your stride length. So the ability to create that impulse and the force into the ground. So from the high end of your front side down to the ground and then on the ground till you come off, that's all about stride length. Off the ground, back to front side, up high, that's all about stride frequency. Of course, bringing it back down, it's still about stride frequency. And when you're doing drills, we have something called compliance hardware. So you've got activator belts, 1080, sleds, um, Exogen, if you wish, waist, um, weight vests, or wrist weights, whatever it may be, because it helps the athlete figure out where they are in space and time. And that's what I spend more time doing, is trying to figure out how to get them to feel, how to get them to find the things I need them to find, particularly since I don't possess the language. I didn't learn Chinese. So,
Get
um, yeah, and we start off walking. We also incorporate these drills over mini hurdles, particularly the running, the ankling, and the running ones. But we start off walking, and then we move to walking to jogging to striding to full sprint, or a three-quarter sprint to a full sprint, with each of these things on, whether it's 1080 or Exogen or with an activator belt. You know, and that takes, it's about a 2-year journey. 18 months is probably the minimal. You're not going to do this in a year, but if you had come and seen Sue in his first year and watched him, you would have thought he was a dunce, and in terms of his physical literacy. But in the second year, he was cruising. His coordination was so good that I knew we were going to be able to get him to run pretty fast. And that, of course, was 2000. That was the latter part of 2018 and the beginning of 2019. So yeah, it was different. Yeah. Um, and he had, of course, the tools. When people asked me how fast do you think he could run, I said, well, he can go sub 9.9, and they laughed. Literally, the whole room laughed. No Asian's ever gone under 10 flat. I'm like, well, it's not my fault. That's your fault. You know, um, I wasn't trying to be a jerk. I just said, you guys brought me here to do what I do. You didn't bring me here to do what you did for the last 30 or 40 years. So let's make the changes that are necessary, and let's get this done. You know. Um, so yeah, it was it I could tell from his stride frequency, he had the ability. His stride length was short, so our goal then was to get his stride length longer. And then we had to start doing the things that made stride, and when Dr. Ralph Mann came, Ralph came, and it was pretty obvious then that we were on the right track. But now the question was how? What what methodology were we going to use to get him to increase his stride length? So that was a that was a challenge.
So, when you say you can get Sue under like running like 9.99, like,
Mhm.
uh, do you use like flying 30 to know that, or like how
Oh yeah,
did
everything ever I do. I mean, I'm a techie guy, so we measure everything. All of my running and my performance predictions are based on a flying 30 off of a 30 meter acceleration. So, and but with Sue, he's not a gamer. He didn't get it on in practice. In practice, he controls himself in practice, which is okay. But so when he runs a certain time in practice, I know that I can add about this to it. So, he had done a 6.64 in practice, which then comes real close to a 6.60, 6.61 fly 30. I mean, sorry, 2.60, 2.64, which comes to 2.60, 2.61 flying 30. That predicts out under 9.8, which he was fully capable of doing. We just didn't get a chance to finish. I didn't get a chance to give him the what I would consider the speed endurance or extending speed under relaxation that he needed. Yeah, but still did really well. I mean, like with any coach, you're never satisfied, with what you did. You can see the errors, you know. Although there's not many errors in his first 60.
Man, his first 60 is awesome.
Yeah, well, I firmly felt he could challenge the world record in 2018. We just never had a chance to go after it. It's pretty obvious in 2021. If he'd been indoors, he would have broke the world record. Without it, he was ready to. But and he lost the medal. He lost the gold medal in Birmingham strictly because of sports medicine. And I'm not going to go into why or how. It's just that took away his ability to do what he needed to do. So it's unfortunate because he would have been world champion. Yeah.
How about this year? How about this year, Olympic year?
He's had COVID 3 times. I mean, it's a difficult thing. His body's, I mean, he's trying hard, but it's really difficult at his age with this COVID thing and everything else. He's got two young children, so they're little germ factories. Anyways, kids always are. Um, but he's working, and hopefully, we'll see him start to come around eventually. I mean, yeah. I think he's only going to run the relay anyways, so that's it.
Oh,
Yeah, he's
hmm.
not. I don't think he's going to run the open 100, and I don't think he should. There's just no reason for him to. There's nothing to gain from running an open 100 right now if you can't get back right fully 100% physically back right on top of it. But you can add a lot to the relay, you know.
That
And
is true.
and I mean he still might be able to run 10:05 and that's fast enough at that relay, you know, for sure. And
That's
half the relay, maybe three-quarters of the relay is actually in Florida with Reina. So, we'll see how they do.
cool. So, I know in 100, like some coaches will talk about like race plan, and especially
Hmm.
with Sue, he's probably shorter than like probably other athlete you coach. So would you say his race plan would be a little bit different than others?
Well, the race is set up the same for everybody. Now, yes, the answer to that, and I was just going to bring something up and see if I can find it here. Um, you still have the same, uh, wrong. That's weird. That's really weird. Hmm. I was just looking up my notes, my own notes, and I'm not finding my own notes. Wild. Um, anyways, there's about 7 or 8 pieces to the race in the 100 meters. And when you look at somebody's strengths, you want to make those so obvious Sue's strength was acceleration. So we had to push that. And was hoping if we pushed it, we get somebody to panic. But if you look at Curly and more um geez, gold
Person,
medalist.
no
No,
allowance.
Italian. No, Italian.
Oh,
Marcel.
Marcel Jacob.
When you look at them in that race, in that semifinal, they both relaxed really well. I mean, and and DeGrasse was over on the right. You couldn't see him, but he also obviously they run real relaxed and they understand it. Whereas Sue doesn't and didn't. And this was the next phase for him, was to understand that. Um, but uh, I left the next year, so we didn't really have much of a chance to address it going into Worlds in Eugene. So and they were basically focusing on the hunt on the 4x1 then, anyways, and I was, they tied the record in Tokyo um, with 37.79, and but the difference is in Doha, you had the guys ran the 100 that like 2 days before, 3 days before. So you knew exactly what they were capable of given their 100 times. So we're looking at 10:16, 10:22, 10:28, 10:32. That's the relay team. Now in Tokyo, it was 9:83, 9:95, 10:05, 10:11, and they ran the same time. So you can tell that the problem there was the handoffs, and I hope that they work that out this year and get that back, because our handoffs in Doha, we had a 3.2 second differential in Doha. It's pretty incredible. And my goal is, as a coach, it's if you can't get 3 seconds and above in your differential, then you're failing as a coach because it's a technical event.
Yeah.
I mean, it is. It's a technical event. You should have a 3 second differential. That's just the way it should be. And I brought in a lot of new concepts to them, things that they weren't thinking about, things that they obviously didn't think about. It's got them into trouble. And we stopped looking at human speed and started looking at baton speed, because that's the key, because the baton has to go the full distance and humans don't. So um, if you can get that baton speed to a certain velocity, you're golden. That's all you need to do, and you can run 37.2, 37.3. It's not that hard if you have the right, with the right people, obviously. Um, Pretty hard to do with 10-20 guys, but with 10-0 guys, yeah, you can do it. Yeah.
Cool. So, uh, you mentioned that there are like six pieces or seven pieces on the 100-meter sprint. Can you like walk us through like what are the six
Yeah,
pieces?
I was going to send them to you, so you had them here. And why I'm not finding them is interesting to me, because I just used them about 20 hours ago. Let me see here. Um, that's so weird. Maybe this is it right here. I have to find my own darn. Um,
It's okay.
yeah. Here we go. So, I use eight most of the time. But so the first one is reaction time, then block clearance, and then the drive phase, and then transition, blah blah, max velocity. Um, they use the speed of maintenance of max velocity. I use endurance of speed. I mean, enduring speed. Same. I used maintenance for years. And then, of course, your negative acceleration. So that gives you seven phases, and every once in a while I'll throw an eighth one in, but it falls in the transition area and it's really complicated. So I don't talk about it very much.
Cool. So I also noticed that when you talk with Joe Smith or when you train Sue, you also mentioned that uh you need to hit like 10 meters in 7 steps, right? Why is that?
Well, it's just one of those things we use as an indicator of a decent start, that, we call it 7 and 10. A lot of people hate it, but it's nothing more than How far is the seventh step? It's just giving you some place in time to look and to have an objective measurement saying, oh, you drove this far, and here was your time to get to, let's say, 15 meters, and here's how far. So then you could go, okay, if you didn't do, now let's go back and let's look at what you were doing in the blocks and with each step out of the blocks to get you to 7, and then that time you got at 15. Yeah. So
Whoa.
that's all. It's just a place, and it's easy because it's easy to do on a track because you just use the 100-meter start at 110 start, and the 10 meters is the first line. So it's real easy to go out and always have that line there to use for practice
Nice.
on any track,
So, I know like Rolf Rolf Ullman, he like tracks like time to peak power or
Hmm.
like dynamic isometric strength. So can you like explain like what is like dynamic isometric strength?
Well, DIS is that place between eccentric and concentric. It's a place where no longer is anything changing length. It's stopped. So that means that although at the outside it may, but on the inside it really has stopped lengthening or shortening, whichever you wish to do. And part of that is learning a lot more about actin, myosin, and then titin, which is the newest protein to be discovered in the last number of years. That's a helical protein that wraps itself through. And of course, also now starting to understand, from the late 80s. I mean, I was given the concept and utilized it in certain areas by Gideon Ariel, but when Thomas Myers wrote his first article, T3, I think it was in 98. Can't remember what year it was, but describing the the elastic system, the fascial elastic system. Well, he wasn't describing it for me. He was describing it for massage therapists. But now all of a sudden it made sense to me about what Gideon Arrow had been telling me all along. Muscles set up joints to take advantage of the elastic power available. Now, um, or if you wish, muscles reposition joints to take advantage of the elastic power available. And that's in a nutshell, that's what DIS is. DIS is taking advantage of the elastic power available to you by setting it all up so that you don't collapse and you don't absorb forces when you strike something, whether it be the ground or a human or whatever it may be, that you have to do that with. So it's used everywhere in everything we do in sport.
I'm gonna ask a super stupid question. Don't
I
be
doubt
pissed at
that.
me. So, don't piss. But like I know like most of the track coach gonna say like during max velocity, your hamstring is gonna be eccentric. But there's also some coaches gonna say at the last part of late swing phase, your hamstring actually isometric.
Both. You remember I said it's the last part, so it's eccentric to isometric. And yeah, that's exactly what happens. You get to a point where it's lengthening and then it just stops and it won't lengthen anymore. And now it's storing energy. And then when it stops that and it goes concentric, you get all the energy back on top of the energy that you get from the muscular contraction. So you get the two together. And in track and field, you also get what the track gives you back because the track's going to bounce on you as well. So you get the harmonics of the track as well. So you use those three things, and now all of a sudden you are utilizing less energy to travel the same distance with every step.
This is fascinating.
Shoes are doing the same thing today, in the distances.
Yeah, yeah.
But I mean, there was, a great sprinter from the University of Oregon, Harry Jerome. And, one of the things I heard Harry say, and he said it to me, it was a long, long, long time ago. He said, Randy, in the 100, you wait for the track to give something back. So when you look at those phases, that transition in that max velocity, so when you transition out, when you go into max velocity, you're waiting, you're being patient, everything's staying the same, and you're waiting to find the harmonic of that track so you can get the bounce off it and get that extra half inch, whatever. It's not a lot, but it's enough to to uh, to maintain your speed in the last 20 meters of the race.
So it's doing.
Carl Carl was a magician at it. Carl could feel it. I mean, he could do it. Now, and the guys that are the opposite of the guys who couldn't do it, Dennis Mitchell, Linford Christie, couldn't do it. They were muscle. They were muscling the race rather than the elastic part of it. Today, I think I'm assuming because of the way they're running, and I see the way they're running, that Dennis has figured that out, with his coaching, and that's it's important.
Cool. So that leads me to the next question. I know we go through that in message, but still like coaches, I know still there's gonna be coaches talk about like fascia-based athlete or muscle-based athlete. I know you said that
There
doesn't
is there
exist.
is there is no such thing. There, everybody has muscle and fascia. What you have are those that have learned how to access the fascia, not those that have. Everybody has to use the muscle, but very few in the past have learned how to access the fascial power that exists. And again, that's highly coordinated. We now know that the fascia itself has its own neural network, its own feedback mechanism, and it's this is why you drill. You drill to find it. You drill to find it, and you run your speed to find it. You do your bounds to find it. So you're looking for it all the time. So there's nobody doesn't have both. They all have both. They just don't know how to access both. That's a big deal.
This is fascinating. This is fascinating. So
Now
last
this is all just my opinion. I'm not going to say there's any science back me up at all on any. DIS is still something nobody even talks about scientifically.
yeah, I'm like few weeks ago, the reason I brought this up was because like few weeks ago, I saw Rolf like try to explain DIS to other coaches, and like every guy's like shocked, fascinated, like how smart that is.
Yeah, well, I introduced Rolf to it, and got him because for him, he was already thinking a certain direction, and all I did was put the pieces together for him, say, look, here's what's happening. And this is where Kaiser came in because I said, and if you want to access this or learn how to access it, you got to do it with Kaiser because you can't do it with anything else. It's too slow. It's just really impossible to do. You've got to be able to do it with something faster than gravity in order to learn how to use it. And that's where, he learned about Kaiser in 2017 or 18, 2017, I think was first. And then he came with me in 2019 for about 5 months. Um, Before my team was dismantled, essentially. I just didn't need to had four guys and didn't need him there anymore. Um, but yeah, I mean, Rolf's a smart guy, and he's looking at some very different things that you know we sat and talked about these things and about what I felt was happening, um and I think what happened is it started to make sense for him, like, oh, well, maybe this is what's happening, and then he went back and started measuring, and he and Kenneth are measuring stuff, and they're getting really, really good results, you know. Um, and so do we. I mean, everybody I have gets really strong and
Yeah,
very powerful. I mean,
get an Asian guy under like get under 10. That's amazing.
oh, there's, I mean, well, the Japanese have what, four under sub 10, I
Yeah.
think. You got the one kid there in Taiwan who probably should go under sub 10. Is he training in the US now?
No, no.
No, no. He should be he need in order to go sub 10, you got to be running against sub 10 guys. You can't do it on your own. Sue can do it after he figured it out a little bit, but doing it on his own, I mean, it's much easier to do when you're running against those guys all the time. You know,
Yeah.
you learn how to race and you learn how to relax and all of a sudden, boom, it starts happening for you.
It's
So,
like, yeah, it's like you mentioned to Sue, like you need to wait until you can feel the feedback from the track, right? That's gonna
yep,
help you relax.
yep. And I measure every track. So I'll take a 1 inch steely, steel marble, and I turn a hurdle on its side because every hurdle is the same width, usually into the width of the lane, and I drop it from there and I measure. So how much it bounces, and we've had some really bad tracks where it only bounces 30 centimeters, and Tokyo was about 48 to 50. London was a little bit less than that. Where we train in Shenzhen was 72.
Oh,
It was, I mean, and nobody's run on it. And they really need to have a race on that track because it'll either destroy everybody or they'll run out of their minds. And my gut level is that it'll destroy them because it's too fast. They won't be able to handle it.
oh,
Um, but there's going to be somebody who can, you know.
yeah.
So yeah, it's and those are just kind of the way you look at it. I mean, if people didn't think Sue could do this. They just didn't think he could do it. Even his coach stopped coaching him. His coach gave up on him, you know, said, I'm done. You can go ahead. And Sue was on his way to do a master's degree at the University of Illinois Institute of Technology in Chicago. And he came and said, well, I'm going to be for a few months. Can I train with you? And that few months turned into 3 years, 4 years, because he went out and he ran, 666, 6'5", something, 6'4", 3, you
And
know,
you make him a Chinese record holder. Man.
and then he became, well, not just him, but, Chun Yu's not a record holder yet, but so Sue's got the 60, the 100, and the 4x1. And then you have the other boys in the 4x1. And then obviously Jainan's got the record in the long jump along with Leach and Xiu Hao, 643, and then Gao Zhilong is 634, six somewhere in there, and Huang Changzhou, all those guys. So I think I've got 7 of the top 10 all time in the long jump in China. Um, and yet the triple jump is my favorite event to coach, and yet they wouldn't let me coach it. So go figure. Um, yeah, it's unfortunate. I'm hoping that it may not be this year. It may have to go to next year. I'm not sure, but I think Chen Yu's got a shot. The Chinese record's 155.53, I think. And I think she could have a shot at that record in the 800 if she wanted to. Yeah.
Nice. Nice.
The 1500 record is just stupid. I mean, it's 350 point something. I mean, it's nuts, you know.
Mm.
So I don't think we're going to be seeing that one anytime soon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And the 400 record is like I think it's 48.9, maybe somewhere in there 40. I mean, it's like the rest of the records. They're all a little suspect. US records, East German, I mean Russian from back in the day. Everybody's a little suspect when you start looking at those things. But hey, it is what it is, and we try to do the best we can legally to make it happen, and that's the fun, is that you get to beat. I mean, you know, Mike beat Carl on Carl's best day ever. That's fun, you know. I mean, it's I'm sure Carl would like to have that record over, maybe even over the gold medal, because he already had a few of those, you know. And some of the jumps Pedroso had, and some of the, I mean, there's been guys that could have broke it, but it hasn't been broken yet. So we're now in year 33. Yeah, it'll
Nice.
get it'll get broken eventually. It should. Yeah.
It's probably still need some time to have
Yeah,
something
I mean,
broke it.
the the Chinese long jump record might be there for a little while. I mean, Jianan could break it. Um, Certainly Xiu Hao was on his way to breaking it, and probably would have broke it the night he broke his foot. I mean, he jumped 643, and it was not. He was fully capable of going 650 that night and more. So, um, yeah, and he was great to coach. You know, he was a good kid to coach, and I felt bad for him. But it was nice because he came back and sprinted, and we got him down to 10:15. He was working with me in the sprinters, 10:15 all of it, and he went from 10:60 to 10:15. That's that's a it took two
Yeah,
years, but that's you
that's
know,
pretty
it-
awesome.
yeah, and Lumen Jia, I mean, I probably the worst job of coaching I did. She didn't improve any. I couldn't get her to improve. Um, but her speed was suspect. So she started out at 12:3, 12:4, and we got her to 11:66, which means now she had way more speed than she ever had before, and she didn't know what to do with it. So we were in that don't know what to do with it speed time, which happens to every single person who gets speed, and they have to learn how to use it in order to jump. And she never and didn't get it, unfortunately. She would have had to. I lost her for almost 3 years, and then she came back. So if she'd stayed with me, I think we would have gotten it, but she didn't. So
Nice, nice. So,
yeah.
uh, last question before I let you go, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I know you talk a little bit about long-term athletic development on Joel's
Mm-hmm.
podcast. Can we walk this through? Like your thoughts on long-term athletic development?
I mean, it's in a nutshell. You don't go specific on one sport early on unless it's gymnastics, maybe swimming, but even that's doubtful. Um, Certainly not soccer, even though they start them young. But you can start young. Just don't make that your whole life because you lose. What you lose is you lose to the base of physical literacy. And when you lose the base of physical literacy because you haven't been doing a lot of different physical movements, then your coordination is limited by that movement set. Now, if you have a great base of physical literacy, then you can build upon that into new movement categories and new movement events, which is going to make you a better athlete and eventually better soccer or whatever. You know, Gymnastics is an early development sport, and there's early and late development, and gymnastics is one of the early ones. Um, I'm not sure about badminton, but it might have been. Badminton may have been an early development one. I can't remember. Um, I'd have to go back and look at them again because it's been a while. But it's an ongoing problem all over the world right now with parents wanting their kids to become great at something, whether it's playing the piano or dance or everybody wants to be Sue. I mean, it's pretty hard to be Sue. I mean, you better choose your mom and dad well, you know, to be Sue. So, and I mean, even even he may not be the best. Um, yeah, even he may not produce the um the right somatotype to be as fast as he was with his son. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, that's basically all I have for you today. Thank you, Coach. I
Okay.
appreciate it.
No, no problem. And she come up with other things. If you run into Tony Nye, say hi to him,
Okay.
please. If you do you know who he is?
I